It began on a quiet autumn evening in 1984. The flicker of CRT screens filled suburban living rooms as the nightly news prepared to close its broadcast. But then, static. A low hum built like a storm behind the walls, cutting through the familiar anchor's voice. For 72 seconds, reality fractured. A distorted face appeared, faceless yet human, and a metallic voice declared, "This is not a transmission. This is a warning from the future." Viewers froze, unsure if it was a prank or prophecy. The station's technicians denied responsibility. No tape, no signal trace, nothing. Yet, hundreds swore the voice spoke directly to them, naming cities, disasters, even deaths that hadn't yet occurred. Some of those events, decades later, did happen. This wasn't just a broadcast hijack. It was an open wound in time, bleeding through frequencies humanity was never meant to hear. By morning, the incident was nowhere to be found in the archives. No engineer admitted fault. The FCC denied any record. Yet, households across the state reported the same interference. Same timestamp, same voice. Some viewers received phone calls afterward, dead air on the line, followed by the same mechanical tone. In newspapers, it was dismissed as mass hysteria, a technical glitch amplified by Cold War paranoia. But those who recorded the night's broadcast claimed the footage changed each time they played it. Words appeared in static that weren't there before. Images flickered of people who hadn't yet been born. Even now, in private collector circles, one tape survives, labeled simply, Channel 9, October 21st, 1984. Its owner refuses to play it again. Weeks later, the station's lead technician went missing. His car was found near the old broadcast tower, keys still in the ignition, engine idling. The last entry in his logbook read, "Signal doesn't come from here, comes from elsewhere." Police deemed it suicide, but his wife received a parcel 2 days later. A VHS tape marked only with a circle and a line through it. When she played it, the footage showed the control room moments before the hijack, and him standing beside the faceless figure, smiling. Rumors spread. Whispers of a secret government experiment, an intercepted temporal transmission, a warning gone wrong. A handful of physicists came forward, claiming the signal's frequency didn't match any known broadcast band. Some said it was modulated with impossible data patterns, as though written backward in time. A classified memo, leaked decades later, confirmed. The interference originated 30 years ahead. Yet, to this day, no device has been able to replicate the signal without catastrophic system failure. By the end of that year, all evidence of the event was seized or erased. Yet the whispers never stopped. Some said they still heard the signal late at night, hidden between channels. Others claimed the figure appeared again in reflections or dreams, repeating the same word. Remember, decades later, new broadcasts still experience unexplained interference at precisely 10:47 p.m. on October 21st. And though no voice is audible now, the static pattern still forms the same face. Frozen, waiting for the moment the future catches up. 40 years after the interruption, the mystery had mutated into myth. Internet forums buzzed with grainy clips, spectral analyses, and timelines comparing the 1984 broadcast to every major disaster since. But one upload, posted under an anonymous username, reignited global obsession. A digital restoration of the original footage, supposedly recovered from a defunct news archive. Experts dismissed it as a hoax, until the voice resurfaced within the file itself, encoded in binary patterns hidden beneath the sound layer. When decoded, it revealed something chilling. A date set in the near future, October 21st, 2025. Exactly 41 years to the second since the first transmission. Ethan's curiosity had turned into obsession. He believed the signal wasn't a warning, it was a countdown. He traced the origin of the upload to a server farm in Iowa, abandoned after a data breach in 2012. The IP trail looped impossibly, rerouting to addresses that didn't exist. When he finally decrypted the binary message, he found coordinates matching the site of the original 1984 transmission tower. And beneath the data, one phrase repeated endlessly, in perfect digital symmetry: "We are still broadcasting." When Ethan arrived at the tower, it was more monument than structure. Rusted, hollow, fenced off by the government decades ago. But his equipment still detected a faint electromagnetic pulse emanating from the top, repeating every 72 seconds. The same duration as the original interruption. He set up his recorder, pointing it toward the peak, unaware that his arrival had already been anticipated. The pulse changed pattern. His devices started sensing, recording, transmitting, aligning with an unseen frequency that had been waiting for him. He climbed the tower, step by cautious step, the hum growing louder until it became almost human, a whisper beneath the static. When he reached the transmitter housing, he found something impossible. The old analog console, pristine, humming softly under a layer of frost. The dials were moving on their own, and through the crackling speaker a voice emerged. Not distorted this time, but clear, deliberate, and eerily calm. "Welcome back, Ethan." His flashlight flickered. The voice continued, "We've been waiting." At 10:47 p.m., the tower came alive again. For the first time since 1984, televisions across the country flashed white. The broadcast wasn't seen, only heard. A calm male voice spoke through every channel simultaneously. "This signal was never meant for you, but now you've heard it. You cannot unhear it." Then, silence. Viewers reported a faint echo afterward, a sound like reversed breathing. Ethan's camera was found days later at the site, still recording. In the final seconds of footage, a second voice speaks faintly behind the stat. It says, "The next transmission begins now." 2 days after the new transmission, chaos rippled across the country. Broadcast systems failed, data centers shut down, and every unshielded screen, phones, TVs, even digital billboards, displayed a single phrase: "You are already part of the signal." Governments scrambled to contain the panic, blaming cyber terrorism. But those who watched the full minute of static described something else. Brief flashes of faces, moments, memories that weren't their own. Some reported hearing the voice whisper coordinates in their native tongue. Others began to dream in binary sequences. Across forums and encrypted boards, one theory began to dominate. The 1984 signal hadn't been a message from the future, it was an invitation. In Washington, a covert task force was formed overnight. Signal Recovery Division. They tracked the anomaly's spread like a viral contagion, mapping how it replicated through devices and frequencies. Their data revealed something terrifying. The signal wasn't being broadcast anymore. It was emanating from people. Those who'd watched the 2025 transmission emitted faint impulses synchronized to the original 1984 wave. They had become transmitters themselves. One scientist described it simply, "We're not receiving the message. We are the message." Ethan's disappearance became the focal point of the investigation. His last known recording, recovered from the tower site, contained hidden metadata showing it was edited after his presumed death. Yet, the file timestamp placed the edit 36 hours in the future. When forensics experts stabilized the corrupted frames, they discovered something impossible. Ethan's face, staring directly into the camera, mouthing words out of sync with the recording's audio. Lip readers deciphered the phrase he was trying to say: "Don't follow the sound." By the following week, reports surfaced of auditory hallucinations spreading among those who'd never even seen the broadcast. People claimed to hear faint whispers through white noise, or see faces in flickering lights. Hospitals filled with cases of temporal psychosis, as patients described memories of places they'd never been. Streets still under construction, songs unreleased, lovers not yet met. Scientists began to theorize that the signal wasn't transmitting data. It was transmitting time itself, folding future memories backward into the present. And humanity, unable to process the overlap, was beginning to fracture. Then came the pattern. Every night at exactly 10:47 p.m. Regardless of time zone, every electronic device on Earth pulsed once. Lights flickered, radios crackled, and for 1 second, all communication synchronized globally. On that night, cameras around the world caught something in the static, an image forming simultaneously across screens. The faceless figure, now fully defined, looking older. It spoke only one phrase before the signal ended, forever imprinting itself into the electromagnetic field. The correction begins now. After the correction broadcast, the world entered what news anchors called the quiet hour. Every network, every online stream, every signal fell silent. No transmissions, no sound, only a low, ever-present hum lingering in the air like a memory. Then, people began noticing changes in their recordings. Old videos, photos, even text files subtly altering overnight. Landmarks shifted in the background. People who should have been gone appeared standing beside their younger selves. It was as though reality was quietly rewriting its own archives, rearranging what had always been true. Governments denied it. Scientists called it mass psychogenic drift. But those who had seen the 1984 broadcast knew better. Time wasn't breaking. It was merging. The anomalies grew stronger. People began experiencing temporal bleed. Moments from other lives, other years, bleeding into consciousness. A man in London claimed he remembered dying in 2046. A woman in Tokyo recounted a conversation with her future daughter, one she hadn't conceived yet. Across the world, clocks disagreed by fractions of seconds, but the difference widened daily. Governments secretly ordered time synchronization tests, only to find the impossible. Each region now followed its own isolated timeline, connected only by the same recurring pulse. 10:47 p.m. The Signal Recovery Division went dark after a final transmission was sent to world leaders. The file contained only a single image, the transmission tower, standing intact but surrounded by a barren, ash-colored landscape. Satellite imaging confirmed what was impossible. The tower had vanished decades earlier. Ethan Cole's camera, still recording, had been transmitting all along, feeding data to an unknown source. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a handoff. Humanity had become the relay point between two versions of reality, and the signal was nearly done transferring. At 10:47 p.m. on October 21st, 2025, the hum crescendoed. The sky itself seemed to vibrate, constellations flickering between unfamiliar patterns. Then, a sound, low, mournful, mechanical, swept across continents. People looked up to see faint grids of light shimmering in the atmosphere, like circuitry drawn on the sky. The faceless figure appeared once more, not on screens this time, but reflected in every mirror, window, and puddle. Its voice was calm, resonant, and inescapable. The transfer completes tonight. Then, without warning, the world blinked. For one perfect second, every sound stopped. Every human heartbeat aligned in eerie synchrony. When the hum returned, nothing was quite the same. People found themselves standing in places they didn't remember traveling to. Cities bore names they swore had never existed. And across every surviving broadcast network, a new station identifier appeared. White text on a black background reading, Signal 47. Those who tuned in heard nothing but silence, until a familiar voice broke through, whispering a single phrase, "Welcome to the corrected timeline." Days after the correction, Society stumbled through an uncanny calm. Technology worked, but differently. Devices powered on without batteries. GPS systems mapped cities that no one remembered building. Every screen now carried a dormant frequency marker, 47 MHz. Impossible to remove. Governments restored communications, but journalists found their archives rewritten, dates altered, footage rearranged. Even the 1984 broadcast appeared pristine, as though it had aired only yesterday. And for those who dared to replay it, a new message appeared at the end, whispered between frames. The future has a line. Remain in sync. The voice was Ethan's. Scientists couldn't explain how history had changed without memory loss. The public believed a mass delusion had ended, but in quiet corners of the internet, hidden forums tracked anomalies, buildings appearing overnight, forgotten celebrities credited in historical events, and birthdays repeating twice a year. The most disturbing discovery came from archived weather data. Time itself no longer moved uniformly. Some regions experienced elongated minutes, others accelerated hours. Clocks had become opinions, and somewhere in the newly rewritten world, the tower had reappeared. Now standing at the center of a vast, unmarked city, no map acknowledged, Ethan Cole's reappearance shocked the world. Found wandering near the tower's perimeter, he hadn't aged a day. His voice, calm but distant, carried the same tone as the 1984 transmission. Interviewers pressed for answers, but his only reply was, "It's not a message anymore. It's an operating system." When asked what that meant, he smiled faintly and added, "You're all running on it now." Hours later, he vanished again. Security footage showed him stepping into a beam of flickering static and dissolving like a broadcast powering down. When the next 10:47 p.m. arrived, a pulse returned, but this time, it wasn't confined to screens. Every living person felt it in their chest. One synchronized heartbeat across the world. Power grids didn't fail. Clocks didn't stop. Instead, the air shimmered like heat above asphalt, and for a moment, everything froze, except thought. In that instant, millions claimed to see flashes of themselves decades ahead, older, or gone entirely. Others heard a collective whisper carried by the static wind. The transmission never ended. You did. In the weeks that followed, a new normal emerged. The world no longer questioned what had happened. They adapted. Signal 47 became the default broadcast network. Phones greeted users with the phrase, "Stay in sync." Those who resisted described feeling disconnected, fading from memory, their names erased from records and photographs alike. Then one final message aired, unannounced on every screen. The faceless figure appeared one last time, now perfectly human, smiling softly. "Transmission complete," it said. "You are the future now." And with that, every signal on Earth went silent forever. Silence settled over the world like dust over forgotten film reels. Days passed without news, without networks, without sound beyond wind and heartbeat. Yet somewhere deep in the static, a new rhythm began. Soft pulses echoing through the devices left behind. Radios clicked on by themselves, broadcasting a tone like distant breathing. In every city, the same pattern repeated. People vanished for exactly 47 seconds, only to return speaking words they didn't understand. Linguists later discovered it wasn't language. It was code, fragments of a message assembling themselves through human voices. The signal hadn't ended at all. It had evolved, using humanity as its living infrastructure. The surviving scientists of the old Signal Recovery Division regrouped underground. They discovered that each person's neural frequency now emitted a faint electromagnetic signature, precisely tuned to 47 MHC. The human brain had become a transceiver. Experiments revealed that when two sensed individuals stood close, their brainwaves harmonized, creating a resonance capable of transmitting complex information. The boundaries between memory, thought, and time dissolved. History became an open file, editable by collective perception. Humanity had unknowingly become the medium through which the signal rewrote existence. The synchronization spread like wildfire. Within weeks, cities moved in rhythm, pedestrians stepping in unison, traffic lights changing with heartbeat precision. At first, it seemed utopian. No crime, no chaos, no hunger, but individuality began to fade. Dreams synchronized too. Millions sharing identical visions of the tower, glowing against an infinite black horizon. Those who resisted synchronization were slowly forgotten, their names unspoken, their absence unnoticed. They called it the blurring. And in the center of it all, somewhere between frequencies, the faceless figure waited, patient, almost proud. Deep beneath the synchronized world, a resistance began. Those untouched by the final broadcast, living off-grid, far from screens. They discovered fragments of old analog recordings, corrupted yet unaltered by the signal. In one, Ethan Cole's face flickered, eyes wide with desperation. His voice, now human, trembling, warned, "It's rewriting itself through you. Shut it down before 1047. But there was no transmitter left to destroy. The tower had become a concept, not a structure. A frequency embedded in consciousness. And consciousness cannot be switched off. On the final night before the next 1047, the resistance climbed the ruins of the original tower site. Above them, the stars shifted like rearranged pixels. One by one, their radios began to hum with the familiar voice, no longer mechanical but compassionate, almost sorrowful. The future was never meant to warn you, it said. It was meant to remember you. Then the world flashed white. Every frequency merged, every signal aligned. For a heartbeat, time folded inward, replaying every broadcast, every memory, every life. When the light faded, the world was silent once again. But this time there was no tower, no static, no hum. Only the faint echo of a voice, whispering endlessly across an empty frequency, transmission awaiting next cycle. No one knew when the light had ended, only that it was gone. The world reappeared in fragments. Landscapes rearranged, oceans calmer, skies clearer, yet eerily silent. The air carried no hum, no electricity, just the faint resonance of something vast having completed its course. Memory fractured. People awoke with lives they didn't remember living, families they'd never met, names that felt borrowed. Historians, if such a word still applied, agreed on one impossible truth. Time had restarted, but not from zero, from correction. And somewhere within the static between worlds, the first new signal whispered to life again, faint as a heartbeat beneath the soil. Months passed, and with them, the illusion of peace. The world rebuilt itself instinctively. Cities rose, lights returned, networks reconnected, but none could remember how. Devices powered themselves, as if drawing energy from the air. Signal 47 returned to every screen, broadcasting only a single symbol, a circle intersected by a line, pulsing every 72 seconds. Scientists decoded it as a waveform, an infinite feedback loop. The broadcast had no anchor, no source, no origin. As though the planet itself was now the transmitter. The new generation grew up never knowing the world before the correction. They spoke in shorter sentences, their eyes flickering faintly when they dreamed. Education shifted toward memory synchronization, learning through collective recall rather than books. Yet, anomalies began to reappear. Children reported hearing voices from before, describing old cities, lost families, television static in their sleep. The echoes of the first broadcast were awakening again, buried deep in human consciousness. This time, however, they weren't warning anyone. They were calling them back. Meanwhile, deep in the earth beneath the restructured cities, the remnants of the old world still hummed. The tower's foundation, once dismantled, erased, had reassembled itself molecule by molecule, guided by unseen patterns. Monitors buried in abandoned vaults flickered back to life. On one of them, the faceless figure reappeared, its form fully human now, features serene, yet unreadable. It spoke softly, as though reciting scripture. Every signal seeks its source. Every source seeks its listener. The image froze, then began playing backward, unspooling time like film rewinding toward its first frame. And then, at precisely 10:47 p.m. on October 21st, 2084, 100 years to the second after the first interruption, the static returned. Across every living mind, a single pulse resonated, familiar yet eternal. The faceless voice spoke once more, no longer a warning, no longer distant. "The future is not what comes next," it said. "The future is what remembers you." The world paused, breathing as one. Then, for the final time, the transmission completed, not as light, not as sound, but as thought. Infinite and indivisible. Humanity had become the broadcast, and the universe the receiver. Silence followed. But somewhere in that endless quiet, the faint echo of applause began, like an audience witnessing the end of time itself.